Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Are Brazil favorites to win the World Cup this summer? If so, can they do it without Neymar? Neymar is unavailable at the moment and his fitness is uncertain coming up this summer at Russia. So who's going to start up front with him? Willian, Douglas Costa? What about the center forward position? Do they have a lock there now? Could Firmino or Gabriel Jesus really take that role by the throat and provide Brazil the goals that they need if Neymar's not there? And what about the midfield? So many options. Paulinho, Fernandinho, Casemiro, Coutinho. Who starts in that midfield? Don't worry. Here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Brazil coped against Russia. So as Brazil prepare for the World Cup, a lot of stock is placed on whether Neymar is going to be fit or not. He's not fit at the moment. Will he be ready in time for the World Cup? Well, these preparation games gives Brazil the opportunity to play without him and try to find a way to prepare for a plan B, to make a plan B, to show that they could win without their superstar. When you look at the board, when they played against Russia, it was still 4-3-3. Douglas Costa, Willian on the flanks. You had Gabriel Jesus up front and midfield. It was Coutinho, it was Paulinho ahead of Casemiro, and on the fullback positions, it was Marcelo and Dani Alves. What went right? What went wrong? Well, Brazil kind of struggled to break down what appeared to be a very narrow five-man backline for Russia, which technically was supposed to be a 3-5-1-1, but ended up being more of a 5-3-1-1, at sometimes a 5-4-1 with Smolov and on an island up front. But they really did compact that space in midfield. It was tight, and you question how Brazil would break them down, because like similar years since the great days of the Brazil national team, their midfield has been pretty functional. They really lack ball creators that could create from deep, that could pass between lines, that could find those little tight spaces on a consistent basis. Paulinho doesn't really offer it. Coutinho doesn't really offer it. Casemiro can offer it, but he sat a bit deeper. He's developed into a more of an all-rounder, but that's not really his game. So you look at the chances that they did create. Again, with Douglas Costa playing a bit more narrow and Willian playing a bit more narrow, it gave Dani Alves and Marcelo chances to get forward. We saw them both deliver cross into the box for Gabriel Jesus that he was unable to finish. And then there was another opportunity where Gabriel Jesus was played in, well, not Gabriel Jesus, Willian was played into the far post by Dani Alves at that back post for some odd reason, and he failed to score as well. When you look at Brazil, one of their main strengths, they have the fullbacks. Alves could play a bit more narrow. He delivers crosses into the box. Marcelo, we know what he's very good at. He has some combinations with Coutinho that worked well. There was one time where Coutinho and him combined and he cut in, and Coutinho fired a shot at Akinfeev. And then we saw Coutinho as well deliver a ball into Douglas Costa, possibly should have scored. But it wasn't enough from a midfielder that is expected to dominate for Brazil and be the key man. You need more creativity. You expect them to create more chances. But when you get back to the fullbacks, the biggest weakness is, again, they could be exposed down the flanks. We saw that happen on a few occasions. And when you have them there and only Casemiro able to cover, it leaves you to wonder whether Brazil will use this 4-3-3 in the bigger games, and now even against the smaller teams, because teams have identified that you can break into the space behind Brazil and you could really harm them, because it forces the fullbacks out, and I mean the center backs out, and if anything it forces Casemiro out of position, and that is key for Brazil. But where did they really change things? In the first half, they struggled to create chances apart from the chances that I mentioned. And when you really look at it, what happened in the second half was just a little minor modification. We saw the wide players play a bit on the flanks. It created more space for these guys to get forward. And one of the key aspects was that Paulinho was a key man in terms of his movement in the first half, because you constantly saw him breaking towards the box, playing a bit higher and ghosting into advanced positions without an end product. In the second half, we saw everything kick off. With this formation, or with them just playing a bit wider, it allowed the midfielders more space. It forced Russia to kind of stretch out a bit to mark those areas, and that's how Brazil kind of exploited the spacing against Russia. Because if you stretch it out wide, you have to push one wing back wide, you have to push the other one wide. You can leave it 3v1 in midfield, but then if they bomb forward as well, someone's got to come out there, and then it really becomes space there, space there, space there. So when you look at the opportunities, Douglas Costa cross into the box that led to Willian teeing up led to Willian teeing up Paulinho, possibly should score there. We saw Coutinho finally, with a mazy run, dribble past 3 players into half space, deliver a cross into Paulinho that he should score as well. That was an opportunity. We saw Willian breaking forward, and the other key to it was that they actually had wider players to deliver crosses into the box. You look at the first goal, it's Willian and the flanks, drifts out wide, delivers the cross in, and that leads to the goal. You look at the second, you look at the penalty, it's Marcelo poking the ball into Paulinho, who again gets to break into that space in the box. More of his forward running leads to the penalty. You look at the third goal, it's just, again, Willian with more brilliance, just running past 2 players, and it's Paulinho finally getting onto the cross at the far post. And when you look at it, it's just, there was more space in midfield for them to break forward when they pushed the players, the wide players wider, opposed to them being narrow and running at players. And Paulinho's late runs, they couldn't cope with it, and that led to the win against Russia. But then you have to pose this question. Does Paulinho have a spot in this midfield? Fernandinho was missing, and when you think about the issues that they have in wide areas, you would have to think that maybe they play 2 deeper, Paulinho and Fernandinho, and give Coutinho the license to roam, because Casemiro could get forward, he's an all-rounder. Fernandinho has turned into an all-rounder at Manchester City and has the passing capability that Paulinho doesn't have. For all the good that Paulinho does, he's more of a functionable player. He's developed a role at Barcelona where he could play his position and sit deeper and ensure that no spaces are being broken down. But from an offensive aspect, apart from the late runs into the box, which are key, what else does he really offer? And that's going to be pivotal. And I think with Fernandinho in midfield, it gives Coutinho more range to kind of find himself in these positions. Like I said, he likes to play those short passes. He hasn't learned to really control the game yet from a midfield position. So he's going to need a bit more freedom. And with that, he's going to need a bit more protection. The fullbacks, they're going to need a bit more protection. So if they could have one drift there and one drift there, that would be key to ensure that they're not exposed in those wide areas. Then when you look at the wide players, if Neymar's back, Willian looks to be the key fit because it provides balance. Yes, he's more limited when he can only drift out to the right, but he's a functionable player that could do that, and that's key. Whereas if you have Douglas Costa on the right, he's more of an inverted winger, and he'll have to cut into the left, and that isn't really what you want with him when you have Neymar cutting in, because then where's the width? And up front, Gabriel Jesus didn't have the best game. He was kind of inactive throughout, so it really looks to the friendly against Germany in midweek where perhaps Firmino gets a start. What can he do? We know he could drop a bit deeper and play in that false 9 role to maybe allow Willian, Neymar, or Douglas Costa the space to break forward. But this season, he's been able to make those darting runs into the box, make more intelligent natural center forward runs, and he could really give Jesus a run for his money. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the InnerViews.